Robots are cool, mechs are cool, explosions are cool, Mechwarrior is cool. Armor Core is cool as well, but we are not talking about that today. Instead, we are looking at Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries, the JumpShip edition, the latest game in the Mechwarrior series. This game has been out for a few years, starting out as an Epic Store exclusive. Eventually, it got moved on to both Steam and GOG, further expanding the player base. 3 DLCs were also released for the game, as well as a ton of free updates. I got the JumpShip edition, as stated previously, which I thought contained all the DLCs, but only the first 2. The DLC not included, called Call to Arms, focuses on melee combat. While it would have been fun to play around with, it is far from a necessity. Either way, is this a worthy entry in the Battletech universe? It's been a while since I've played a Mechwarrior game. Specifically, Mechwarrior Online was the last one I played. Because of this, I got in the tutorial to familiarize myself with the controls before going into career mode. For a tutorial that goes on way too long, many of the core features are not touched upon, including ejecting from the mech as well as how to control your squad in battle. The main game takes place with the campaign, but screw that, as I went with the career mode instead. Unlike Battletech that had this mode in a free update, you'll need to purchase the Heroes of the Inner Sphere DLC if you're not purchasing the JumpShip edition. Either way, you're given 7 career starts to choose from, as well as the ability to import your campaign. I chose the House Steiner start since it provides a Griffin, which is one of my favorite mechs from Battletech. After that, your career as a mercenary company has started. You're gonna need some cash money, boy, to pay some bills, so the first thing I recommend is to fly into a conflict zone and accept a mission. Accepting a mission is a bit unique in terms of negotiation. You get a handful of negotiation points that you can use to increase the amount of salvage you can collect, the payout, insurance, and airstrikes. Early on, you won't have many points to work with, but this increases as your rank increases as well as your relationship with your employer. Each mission also has a limit on how much tonnage you can deploy. In a recent update, you can now go over this limit for a reduction of payout and salvage. I honestly don't know why your employer cares about this, but maybe someone in the comments can explain this to me. Once you and your fellow mech warriors are deployed, it's time to complete the job. Some jobs involve defending a location, destroying some buildings, assassinating a mech, and a few others. Thankfully, there aren't any escort missions here. I'm guessing the devs saw how broken and just not fun they were in Battletech, so they wisely omitted them. Compared to Battletech, the game is far more satisfying taking out an enemy mech. Not only are the graphics improved, a bit being on the Unreal Engine, but the sound effects are far more satisfying. The first time I fired a PPC was definitely an experience, and the burst AC-20 sounds like something out of Warhammer 40k. It's freaking badass. Melee also feels pretty good punching the hell out of a mech with some heavy hands. My strategy is to get close to serve as a tank while the rest of my AI squad mates pick off from a distance. Most of the time it works, but sometimes it gets me killed. It's just the nature of the beast. Speaking of graphics, this game supports ray tracing, so I decided to give it a shot with my 3060 Ti. I mostly get well over 100 frames when playing, but it tanks to about 40 with ray tracing enabled. I've always been very underwhelmed with the frame rate hit with this option enabled on many games, and I'm once again just not impressed. I will admit that the colors and reflections look far better with it on, but it definitely is not worth the performance hit. Back to the fighting at hand. The Mechwarrior games have always been known for their more methodical pace. While the simulation elements are still present, I found the game to be far quicker, at least when it comes to taking out mechs and completing missions early on. As you attempt harder missions, you'll need to be far more tactical on your approach. This involves good positioning, optimal equipment loadout, good heat management, and so on. Managing your heat, especially if you use a ton of laser weapons like me, is essential. If you overheat, your mech will temporarily shut down. You can override this, but I never did as I didn't want to accidentally damage my components doing so. Positioning is also something I still need to improve upon, as you can easily get into a bad situation rushing in. Once you've completed the mission, you get your reward and can spend your salvage points on the items and mechs to take with you. You also get a summary on how many kills each person in your squad has. Side note, you can only deploy up to 4 mechs per mission, similar to Battletech, but it's far easier to overcome here given the real-time combat versus the turn-based combat found in Battletech. Afterwards, you'll need to repair your mechs, which is a bit of an issue early on. In combat zones, repairs will be more expensive and take far longer. I figured I can just fly to the nearest planet and get repairs, but the only other way is to land in an industrial hub. Since traveling to other planets take time, I had to be mindful of the missions I took and tried to not take too many hits. Easier said than done considering my lighter mechs consisting of commandos and a locust of all things. Still, it was more than manageable as my career rank increased. As stated previously, this increased my negotiation points as well as unlocking a cantina to take on side quests. These involve collecting a certain part or mech, or killing a certain amount of enemies. These are accomplished alongside your missions and can help net you a nice payday as well as some solid loot. The majority of missions you accept will be procedurally generated, but there are handcrafted missions that can be accepted. These usually involve accepting a transmission and going to the location to complete it. I definitely recommend these for both a nice challenge as well as some awesome rewards. My favorite ones involve getting a hero mech or a rare mech to play around with. As I always say, the more mechs the merrier. When certain years are reached, the game introduces new mechs and missions to participate in. One in particular is an urgent transmission that is basically the campaign for Legend of the Kestrel Lancers, which is the second DLC. All I gotta say is good luck, since this is incredibly time sensitive and you often don't get much time to repair your mechs in between missions. I recommend to have an ample supply of heavy and some assault mechs on standby. By the end, I had to buy several assault mechs as a majority of mine were stuck being repaired. Good lord, I've been talking about mechs and I haven't even gone into the actual customization of it. For starters, each mech can fall under several variations. Depending on the variation determines what kind of weapons fall into it. Some have more slots for lasers, while others have more slots for ballistics or missiles. It's a shame that when you get a powerful mech, but the variant could be either against your playstyle or just not very beneficial at all. You can also improve the armor bearing that you don't make the mech overweight. There are also a few cosmetic options for that final touch and upgrades that can be installed from completing Cantina missions. I definitely have fun customizing my mechs, but it does feel limited on potential combination at times. As mentioned previously, the sound design is very well done. The weight of melee strikes as well as the concussive sounds of powerful guns is incredibly satisfying. The music is also surprisingly good with many memorable tracks that are perfect in the heat of battle. There's also a ton more voice acting here compared to Battletech. Unfortunately, it's a mixed bag with both very good performances and others that just feel rushed with reduced audio quality. While I overall enjoy the career mode and the game itself, there are a few issues that I do have. For one, the squad AI is very inconsistent. Sometimes they play like a perfect unit taking out mechs and other enemies with quickness. Other times, they have no clue what to do unless you tell them directly to attack a target right next to them. There's also just very little control in orders you can issue. I couldn't find a way to set strategies for your squad mates or tell them to punch out before they get killed. I had a few pilots lose their lives when it could have been prevented if they were just ordered to eject earlier. The AI of enemy mechs also tends to suffer specifically for garrison missions. For missions with a ton of elevation, the pathfinding is garbage. I've seen enemies plenty of times getting stuck as well as heading in a completely wrong direction. This unfortunately happens for both enemy vehicles and mechs. And speaking of pilots, they can all level up to do more damage with certain weapons as well as other mech attributes. In all honesty, I didn't really notice any difference between each level. You can also level yourself up, but I also didn't notice much difference there. I haven't ran into any hard number tests or anything, so I could be wrong. The career mode itself is fun, but does lack a few features I was hoping to find from Battletech. Unlike that game, you cannot upgrade your ship. I get that morale is no longer a thing, so upgrades to that would be pointless here. However, I was hoping to find some way to lower the travel time between planets. This was something I did with excess cash to max out the ship. I also wish there were upgrades to how many active mechs you can have at once, since 12 is far too low. On launch, the game was very disappointing for many longtime fans, as well as fans of mech games in general. I'm now happy to inform you that the post-launch support has been fantastic to help elevate this game to an easy recommendation from me. The combat is satisfying, the sound design is spectacular, and the progression of getting better mechs and weapons is a ton of fun. There are still issues regarding the AI as well as a few other minor gripes, but overall it's been an awesome experience. Bear in mind though that certain features like the career mode is only in DLC, which is why I reviewed the JumpShip edition instead of the base title. It can be expensive for some, so make sure to pick this up on sale and you should be good to go. Thank you guys for watching as always. And this is Powerhouse, signing off.